Hey, Torah fans, Scott Laird, Michael Rood, we just wanted to thank you for watching Passover 2020 online. We know it was a different situation, but we hope you loved it. We love doing it. And now, today, according to the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar, it is the Day of First Fruits. And the Day of First Fruits, Michael, is something that we do in faith, not knowing if any of the barley crop is going to be harvested other than what first appears, and that's what we give. And that's what First Fruits is all about. It's a faith-giving thing. And it's especially pertinent right now when we really don't know what's going on in the world.
That's right. The Day of First Fruits, as it was fulfilled in the gospel record, when Yeshua arose from the grave, it says, the saints whose graves were opened when he cried with a loud voice, "It is finished." It says the rocks rent. The earth was opened up, the graves were opened, and those who were in the grave arose when he arose and appeared to many in the streets of Jerusalem. See, that happened on Wednesday afternoon when he cried with a loud voice. The graves were open, but yet it wasn't the day of the first fruits yet. When Yeshua then, 3 days and 3 nights later, arose on the weekly Sabbath, and then when the sun set, he then raises those and brings them out of the grave, and they appear to many in the streets of Jerusalem. It's literally all the priests and the people that come over to the Mount of Olives, and they're there for the first fruit barley harvest. And they're there, and they go through this entire ritual where they have shocked together 10 standing shocks of barley days before, at the time that the Passover lambs have all been sacrificed. When the high priest cries out, "It is finished," at that time they go over and shock the 10 standing shocks of barley. And now, at the end of the weekly Sabbath, that is when they harvest them. And so those saints appeared to those thousands of people that were gathered together for the ceremony of harvesting the first fruits. And then the following morning, that when Miriam came to the grave, she saw in the darkness what appeared to be the gardener. And she said to him, "Where have you put the body of my Lord? Where have you taken him?" And the gardener answered one thing: Miriam. She knew that voice. She rushed to grab him by the feet. He stepped back and said, "Do not touch me. I have not yet ascended to my Father in heaven." And then she told him, "I now ascend to my Father and their Father. I now ascend to your God and my God. And then meet me in the Galilee, like I told you before." Yeshua takes those first fruit saints, presents them before the throne in heaven. They are the 24 elders that we see in the book of the Revelation. And then he's down on the earth to greet the other women who came to the grave with the now unused burial spices, because he's already risen. And as he's going back, it says he appears to them and he says, "Yehovah Yoshia," Yehovah saves you. And they then hold him by the feet, because he's already presented the first fruits. He had already ascended to the Father in heaven. And without the understanding of the first fruits, we can't even understand it. I learned it in seminary. They didn't believe these verses at all. You know, they said, no, they shouldn't even be in the Bible. They don't make any sense. Why? Because it was a Gentile seminary. They have no idea of these prophetic shadow pictures. But in the first fruit offering and what is done, this is also a prophetic shadow picture. Because before, when the barley is harvested in the spring, that's the first crop. But yet no one can eat of that barley. No one can eat of it. They have to eat last year's, even if it's running low, even if it's running out. You have to eat something else until you harvest the first fruits of the barley, the earliest crop, and then you present it as the first fruit offering. In other words, you take of your need even, because this is where we place our faith in the Almighty. This is before we're able to eat of the barley. It's before the big harvest comes in even. We have no idea what the year is going to hold. And this is where we put our faith in him. We put our trust in him, and we give it, and we trust him to be our provision for the rest of the year. And see, this is real faith. This is active faith. And this is why the first fruit offering is so important for us believers. This is above and beyond the temple tax and the tithe. This is what is done first, with no promise of the future, no reckoning that hail isn't going to fall again and destroy the barley crop, because it can. It can rain torrentially and destroy the barley again. There's nothing that cannot happen without it going past the throne of the Almighty. And so when we give, that is symbolism in action. When we give of the first fruits, and we give as bountifully as possible, expecting that we will get a bountiful harvest then and through the year and through the fall feast to lead us all the way back around the year. This sets it all in place. That's why it's the first feast of the year. It's in the first month, because this sets the standard for our faith in the Almighty for the whole year in relying upon Him.
And like you said, this is not a give to get scenario. This is giving because we have faith in Him.
Right. There's no love gift. We're sending out no love gift. This is your love gift to the Almighty. And we have to accept that as such. In the ministry, at our Passover event, when people are there, we actually have a representation of the altar of incense that people put their offerings in. We ask them to go to that prayerfully, because number one, this is the incense, our prayers that are offering to God on the altar of incense. That's what it represents. But it also represents that to the ministry, that these offerings don't belong to us. These offerings are to God, and we have to manage them as faithful stewards, and that we have a greater condemnation that would come upon us for misusing things like that and using it for our own aggrandizement, our own benefit, our own prosperity. No, this is to do what Yeshua said to do. He said, this gospel that he is preaching, this is the gospel that must be preached in all the world. That is our job. And he said that he would be with us, he would be in us, and he would work with us until the end of the age. So we're simply following through on what he said. And we cannot tell, Scott, if this situation that we're currently in, that this is not the judgment of God. And that this is not his provision, because we know that all things work together for good to those that love God, to those that are called according to his purpose. And what is his purpose? That all men be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth. That the truth goes out to the entire world. This is our opportunity to reach out to the entire world and teach them that the Torah is real, that God's commandments are real. They weren't nailed to the cross. The commandments of God are eternal. These are the rules whereby Yeshua is going to rule the nations of the earth with a rod of iron, and we are going to be his priests and kings to teach and to judge accordingly. This is all in preparation for the reality of living in a glorified body with Yeshua upon the earth and reigning for 1,000 years. And if we don't do our job now in this life, we are not going to have the opportunity. We're not going to reign as priests and kings. If we end up being gathered together on the sea of fire and glass, and at the end of that, everything we've done is wood, hand, stubble, and it's all burned, we've got no one to blame but ourselves. And it says there's going to be weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth on the sea of fire and glass for the missed opportunity. And you can imagine, being there when, it's like I would have, I could have, I should have. All these, the remorse, the gnashing of teeth that we have not shed our pagan garments, we have not done works of righteousness, because those are the garments of the bride. That it's welcomed in the marriage supper of the Lamb, that she's clothed with garments which are the righteousnesses, the righteous acts of the saints. This is what we're trying to wake people up to. This life is not just, getting by and then we get raptured and go up to heaven and grow wings and sit on a cloud and play a harp for eternity and ask stupid questions of people who actually did something. No, we are in training. We are to prove ourselves now, because if we're faithful with the talents we have now, then we will have dominion. We'll have authority over 5 cities, 7 cities, 10 cities. We will have, as Yeshua says, do what I ask you to do, and you will reign with me as priests and kings for 1,000 years. This is reality. And part of that is our first fruit offering, honestly. If we're unwilling to do that and to put that out first, then, it's like, you're the salt of the earth. But if you don't do your job, if you lost your saltiness and willing to be salt, then you're good for nothing, to be thrown out in the street and trodden under the foot of men. I don't want to be trodden under the foot of men. And this is what's happening. We're seeing that happen now. See, that's what happens when people are disobedient to the commandments of God, and they're free game to the enemy. They are living under a curse because they are outside of the Torah, as Paul said it. Just like he quoted Deuteronomy, quoted Moses. All those who are outside of the Torah are under a curse. So we're trying to wake people up, shake them up, and let them know Yeshua will rule this earth according to the rules and laws in the Torah. And even as it said, those who eat the abomination and the swine and the mouse in the millennial reign, it says they're going to be incinerated. He's not putting up with it. He rules with a rod of iron, and so this is our time. So I want to encourage everyone out there, to engage, to put forth the best that they have, the best that they can, because we know that this is an offering to the Almighty. It's not an offering to this ministry. It's an offering to Him, and we are required to function within that, understanding that just as the priest, we don't take the raw meat, we don't take the best, we take what is necessary to feed us and our children, and then we really put this forward to get out to the world in many languages now.
I really appreciate what you say, Michael, about being an opportunity. This really is an opportunity to do something so that you're not one of those on the sea of fire and glass that is regretting something you could have done in a time where there was real need and you really did have to put your faith out there and do something that you weren't comfortable with. Well, that's where faith begins, where we're not comfortable, right? So this is what this first fruits opportunity represents, especially this year, when we don't know if we're going to have more for the year. We don't know anything. So we are putting our faith in the Almighty so that this ministry can continue bringing the good news to folks who don't know the truth. And therefore, at the end of it all, you can see the fruits of what you did on First Fruits. You brought the knowledge of the truth to folks through your First Fruits offering, and that is of eternal reward. So we want to thank you for that in advance. And there's the information right there on the bottom of your screen on how you can give your First Fruits offering this year. And we want to thank you for that.